Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel! Yay! I know it's been a while. Okay, first things first. Where was I? Yeah, I graduated high school last year and I took a job. I tried for engineering, and after 1 year I feel like I really don't want to do engineering. Like, I'm not happy. So engineering is off the tracks for now. Forever, I guess. And I'm joining college soon. So I'm free for a month, so I thought I would make a video. The title says it all. Today we'll be reading books recommended by bootok. So in the past 12 months, I read a lot of books, and most of the books were recommended by bootok. Why? Because I don't know, I was curious. As someone who grew up with literature, I feel like books are a huge part of my life. It was actually one of my friends who recommended me that I should do a video like this, and I thought it was a great idea. So let's do this, I guess. Okay, the first book I picked was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this was my first time with this author, and I was impressed. The story revolves around the character, Evelyn Hugo, and it's basically her life story, how she got out of Hell's Kitchen, all the trouble she went through, and how she became famous in general. As the title goes, the book also tells us the story of Evelyn Hugo and her 7 husbands, and why she had to get married each time. Sometimes it was because she wanted to get out of a place. For example, she married her first husband because she wanted to get out of her hometown. Sometimes it was out of love, but most of the time it was because she was hiding her girlfriend. Spoilers ahead, so if you don't want any more spoilers, you may just skip to the next part. Where are my glasses on my head? Yeah, there you go. I went into this book blind and I did not know it had a queer element to it, and I was surprised in a good way. I feel a lot of authors, particularly new age authors, fail to deliver a narrative of a person coming out of the closet. It feels cringy, it feels very unnatural. But with this book, it felt so natural that for a while I forgot that this is actually fiction, that Evelyn Hugo does not exist. I would refrain myself from giving any more spoilers. If you like the book, obviously go and read it. For me, it was a good 4 out of 5. Like the easiest 4 out of 5 I've given, because I am
quite overcritic when it comes to the book. The books. I'm sorry, I forgot English for a second.
I just wish the ending would have been a little better. I mean, it was a good ending to a good book. It just felt rushed. Like, I wish there was at least one more chapter where, Evelyn and the article coming out about her being a bisexual and the reaction of the public were shown. But anyway, a good book. A good 4 out of 5. I would recommend it. The second book I picked was called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And I guess this was probably the biggest book in 2021, 2020, 2022. I don't remember the year. Again, this was my first experience with him as an author, and it was nice. The book revolves around a particular character, Nora Seed, and she's in a very bad position in her life, and the book starts with her death. Trigger warning, there are going to be some sensitive topics discussed in the video, so if you're not comfortable, you may just skip to the next part. Nora Seed in the book is shown as a 35-year-old struggling with depression. She is in a very bad point in her life. She just lost her cat, she lost her job, she lost contact with her best friend. Like, all the bad things were happening to her all at once, to a point where she had to take the decision of ending her own life. and that's when the story actually begins. As the title of the book goes, The Midnight Library, it is said in the book that there exists a library between life and death, and that's exactly where Nora Seed ends up. And in the library, she is given the chance to relive all of the lives she could have lived if she took a different decision. Thus, Nora decides to live all of the lives she could have lived, but the catch was that if her sadness goes beyond a point, she would just return to the library and she would have to live another life. Nora lived a lot of lives while she was in the library. In one life, she was in a bed with her brother. In some other, she was a scientist working at the poles. In some other, she decided to complete masters in philosophy. And I bet that was the longest life that was portrayed in the book. But each time, something would happen and she would just return to the same place. That was the library. In the end, it's shown that the library comes crumbling down and she ends up in the life that she was trying to run away from. The life where her cat died, where she was struggling with depression. And why? You just have to read the book to know why. I will not give any more spoilers. Well, this was a good 3.5 out of 5 for me. Why 3.5 out of 5? I feel like the idea of mental health, the whole concept of mental health in this book was overly simplified. Like, it just said, you don't have to be sad, just start being happy. While mental health goes deeper than that, like way deeper. The idea behind the book was great. I just don't think it was interpreted in the best way. Maybe I would recommend this book to someone who's very new to the book world, who's just starting off. I believe this book is very easy to consume and it would be a great start for them. The third book I picked up was The Song of Achilles, by Madeline Miller, and what a great book. This was my first time with the author and I was blown, honestly. This book was a retelling of Greek mythology and I absolutely love Greek mythology. But sometimes I do find it kind of hard to consume Greek mythology because there are so many gods I don't know about. There's so many creatures I've never heard of. There's so many myths I'm still not aware of. But this book addressed each god, each creature, each myth separately. And it was very easy to go through this book. The story revolves around the character Achilles, who was the hero in the War of Troy. And it shows his life through the eyes of his alleged lover, Patroclus. The narrator of the story being Patroclus himself, it shows how he met Achilles, how they traveled together, how they grew fond of each other, ultimately falling in love with each other, and how they went to wars that lasted for years. I went through a couple of reviews before actually reading the book, and a lot of the reviewers said that this is quite a tragedy, and I do see the point, but it did not really make me cry for most of the part. Except for that one part in the ending where like Patroclus is murdered and Achilles slept while hugging his dead body, and that was the only part in the whole book where I actually teared up. Now this was a book which was heavily recommended both on booktube and on booktube, and I kind of see why, because this is an exceptionally well written book. Madeline Miller, this was my first time with her and I loved it. I am actually waiting to read more of her. Please let me know in the comment section if there are more books from her that I can read. The next book I picked up was Twisted Hate by Anna Hall. And again, this was my first time with this author. And, well, it's not my favorite. Why I picked this book? That's because I saw a reel on Instagram where it said like Dom male protagonist and Dom female protagonist. So when they combine, it's twice the heat. I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. But then I read the book and I'm like, where is the Dom female? Where? I can't see it. I can't touch it. This was the third book from the Twisted series and Enemies to Lovers trope. Well, the book revolves around this character, Jules, and Josh, who is the older brother of her friend Ava. And it just shows how they both hate each other but end up liking each other. A very predictable plotline. I could just tell the ending of the book by reading just half the pages. However, I do feel that the author, Anna Huang, did a wonderful job in emphasizing the relationship between characters and why characters hate each other and why not. I think she did a commendable job on it. However, I would not lie, I did find this book very boring. Why? Because the original storyline, the plotline, is a very overused one. Like, you would see the same story being repeated in every other fanfiction, either on Wattpad, either on Archive of Our Own. It's a very overused one, so it didn't pick my interest necessarily. And this is a thick book, like this is a thick book, probably the thickest one. And since the plotline didn't have any of my interest, I found it very hard to complete this book. Like other books I completed in a very short while, like for example, the Seven Husbands one, I completed in like one day, but this took me a good month to complete. Also, there were a lot of steamy scenes in this book, which I have no problem with, but I found these scenes very, very comical. For example, there was one line that went like, and this was actually a line that also got viral on Twitter, and I see why. It just feels very comical. All in all, I would rate this book like a 2 out of 10. I might get hated for this, but I did not really enjoy this book. Would I recommend this book to someone else? Probably not. Let's continue. The next book I picked up was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. And okay, I'll be honest, I hate it. I absolutely hate this book. So the story revolves around this character Lily, who's like an aspiring florist, and then she meets up a guy, Ryle, who was a red flag from the very beginning, somehow ends up marrying him, then he turns out to be abusive, then she divorces him, and that's pretty much how the story ends. The book further introduces a third character at last, who is like the only normal character in this book. Sadly. He's someone Lily helped when they were kids, like he had no home, she gave him a home, something goes like that. I'm not going to give any more spoilers. There are so many points in this book where I was questioning the author herself. Like, there was a scene where it was shown that Lily was getting aroused when Atlas was putting cow dung on her. And Colleen Hoover, I'm not sure if you know the smell of cow dung. It is definitely not arousing. Anything but arousing. Similar to that, there are many more instances in this book where you would just start questioning yourself like, is this satire? Well, one might find it hard to critique this book because this was a book inspired by the author's own mother, but that doesn't change the fact that it is a very badly written book, very poor choice of words. Now, this was a book that was heavily recommended, not just on like booktube or booktube, but also in real life. Like a lot of the people who recommended me this book were people who were very new to the book world. And I do see why they like this book. Is that because when you do not have any other good book to compare these books with, these books would seem great to you. And yes, I am being shady. However, coming to the better points of this book does give a strong message against abuse, and I feel like that's the only good part of this book. But definitely not enough to cover the bad points, the bad writing, the badly written characters, or the very predictable plotline. All in all, not a great book. I would rate it 1 out of 5. That 1 is only for Atlas. Definitely for Atlas. With that, we've come to an end of our video. Thank you all for watching this video. Please let me know in the comment section if you'd like to watch more videos like this, more book reviews, and please do recommend me good books if you want me to review them. And thank you for watching. Until next time, bye!